Hey, and it's a Friday morning, April 3rd. This is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. You can find us on YouTube, subscribe and click the bell, follow us on SoundCloud, and support us on Patreon. What are we going to hear today? Of course, the coronavirus updates, but also new antibody tests and what that means for this fight against the coronavirus, and also we'll look at some of the proverbs of the week. So everyone, it is the end of the week, and many of you who are still working, this is the last day, so I'm sure that a lot of you are really happy to be going home for the entire weekend, to be locked down in the exact same place where you were working at home. Yay! Either way, let's get into the featured artist of the day. Now, this is cool because yesterday or the day before, I introduced to you Kuma-chan. I think it was yesterday, right? I introduced to you this new Japanese artist named Kuma-chan. And in there, I was looking around and I found another Provi label in Japan. They are called RJR, which means Rising Japan Radio. They're on SoundCloud, and the cool thing is, it's not just music. It's like a radio show, full out. Like there's like bits and pieces of like Valentine's Day or this going on. There's like 2 or 3 of them that's doing like an actual radio show that you can listen to. Unfortunately, it's all in Japanese. I tried to listen to it, but with my limited Japanese, I couldn't understand a single thing they said. But if you are Japanese, go ahead and take a look at it. And today we're going to take a look at a song. I'm not sure who the artist is, but the song is called Universe. Universe. So that's the first song we're going to hear. It's coming from which label? It's RJR, meaning Rising Japan Radio. And this song is called Universe. The second song is probably a song you've heard the beginning of it like 10,000 times. It is the opening and closing to my show, right? And it's an actual song by the Sumney Boys. Okay, so those of you who don't know, the song is actually one of my favorite songs of the Sumney Boys. It's called Butterfly, and it's featuring Sarah Chamberlain from the UK. But I chose it because it's just a great song, but I don't think you guys have ever really heard the full song. It is amazing. Okay, so we're going to listen to 2 songs right now. The featured artist is RJR, Rising Japan Radio, and the song we're going to hear is Universe. And the second song is from the Sumney Boys. It is Butterfly, featuring Sarah Chamberlain.
go. Gotta let go. And let it happen. And let it happen.
Yeah. Believe in yourself and believe in somebody.
Gotta believe in yourself. Cause no one else will.
You people have the power to make this life free and beautiful. To make this life a wonderful adventure.
You wanna make it happen? Don't ever back down from the challenge ahead of you. Gotta keep your head up. Have a positive attitude like a drunk sometimes. When problems arise, just take it all in. Learn and grow, then it'll be alright. The stages to life and where you wanna be. Nobody said it will be easy. You have to struggle to get your dreams seen. You gotta transform, believe me. When people don't think so much of you, use it as fuel, shackle with the new you. When people say that's not what you should do, just let them watch you hit your new moves. Ay, a young caterpillar, now a butterfly. Give thanks to God to the day you die. No limits to your life, cause now you fly. Spread your wings and soar up to the sky.
Shines bright, I let my wings dry and fly away. No limits to the sky. With your warming, shining love, the spring's come. I'm born again. No limits to my life because of you. Cause you have made this butterfly.
This little boy, just living in his own world, having his mind full of himself, just keeping in the old. This little boy is trapped inside his own cocoon. Maybe one day his wings will sprout soon. Now I'm going through metamorphosis, but I'm feeling like Morpheus. The red pill, the blue pill, which one would make me victorious? In life you have to overcome with these little moments. Now all he has to do is never get discouraged. Yo, now is the time I put on the wings and fly. I'm soaring up to the sky, just making sure that I shine. No longer that little caterpillar, but I'm flying like Butterfree. I'm dripped up and dripped out, which means I'm flying, I'm breaking free. This story doesn't end just after this verse. There's many more chapters as I continue my growth. If you're not dreaming too high, you're dreaming too small. I bury away all the old things that I don't need in this world. Throw away your old methods into new ways. Only then you'll celebrate, it's a new day.
As the sun shines bright, as the sun shines bright, and fly away.
Throw away your old methods into new ways.
Limits to the sky. With your warming, shining love, the spring's come. I'm born again.
Only then you'll celebrate, it's a new day.
Limits to my life because of you. Cause you have made this butterfly. As the sun shines bright, I let my wings dry and fly away.
Throw away your old methods into new ways.
Limits to the sky. With your warming, shining love, the spring's come. I'm born again.
Only then you'll celebrate, it's a new day.
Limits to my life because of you. Cause you have made this butterfly. As the sun shines bright,
Throw away
as the sun shines bright,
Throw
and
away
fly away.
old methods into new ways.
No limits to the sky. With your warming, shining love,
You'll celebrate,
I'm
celebrate.
born
It's
again.
a new day.
No limits to my life because of you. Cause you have made this butterfly. Cause you have made this butterfly.
And that was Butterfly from the Sumney Boys featuring Sarah Chamberlain. And of course, that is kind of the intro music to the Monday Star Drive. So I hope that now you guys understand where that song comes from. But the full song is really amazing. And of course, the featured artist today was RJR, which is Rising Japan Radio. And the song we heard, I'm not sure who the artist is, but someone needs to fill me in with who these people are. And the song was called Universe. I hope you guys enjoyed the new featured artist of the day. Now, let's go straight into the coronavirus updates. And it's getting pretty wild because we're basically going to be hitting we're going to be hitting 1 million probably within the next 24 hours. And the reason I'm saying that is because we just gained 77,302 infections within the last 24 hours, and now we're at over 960,000 infections, which basically means by tomorrow or even halfway through in 12 hours, we're going to be over the 1 million infection mark. The deaths have gone over 49,000. And of course, we're basically, this coronavirus is conquering the entire world. Like there's, 200 plus countries. And if you look at everything that happened yesterday, the epicenter of the coronavirus is in America now. And they added 27,000 new infections, which brings them to over 217,000, around there. Which means they've crossed the 200,000 infection mark with over 5,100 deaths. And of course, we told you yesterday is that Spain is now the new epicenter for for all of Europe for the coronavirus, as they're stepping up. And if you compare them to Italy now is only having around 4,000 to 5,000, and Spain is over 8,000 infections a day. Spain's already at 104,000, Italy's at 110. But both of these countries combined, Italy has over 13,000 deaths, and Spain now they've crossed the 10,000 death threshold. Germany, just surprising. Germany's very surprising because they added 6,100 with a total of 78,000 infections. Yet their death rate, they don't even have 1,000 yet. There's not even 1,000 deaths yet. France is about 4,800, which brings their total to about 58,000, and now their death toll is over 4,000. Of course, everyone in the UK is getting pretty serious because their daily death rate, or the amount of people that's died in a single day, I believe yesterday was the highest with over 560 deaths in a single day. I'm in Malaysia right now. I keep saying this every single day. I just got to keep telling you because there's always new listeners coming in. I'm in Malaysia. We added 208 people, and we're over 3,100 infections. Interesting thing is, the experts are now saying that Malaysia is about 2 weeks away from the peak. So usually what happens with the coronavirus is it keeps getting steeper and steeper. The infections rise to a certain rate, and then it peaks, and then it plateaus for a bit, and then it drops. So thank God we're looking forward to the peak in about 2 weeks. It might plateau for about another week to 10 days and then start dropping after that. And we're hoping that by the end of April, we'll all be able to get out of this lockdown. Indonesia, they added... Indonesia's kind of in a pretty bad situation, mainly because they have so many deaths compared to the amount of people they have, because they have a little bit under 1,800 people that are infected, but the deaths in Indonesia is well over 100. I believe, here it is, they're at 170. So they're getting closer to 200 deaths. So that's pretty bad right now, because Malaysia's not that bad. We're still around like under 40. I believe under 40. Hong Kong is doing well, even though they're a little bit over 800 people. They're actually doing well. Not many deaths there. It's kind of same as Singapore, because Singapore just hit 1,000. It's 1,000 infections, but there's 3 deaths or 4 deaths maybe, right? Hong Kong's the same thing, about 3 or 4 deaths. But thank God is a lot of these countries are starting to hit their peaks, which very, very grateful for, because even when I looked at Italy, Italy is now... You can see that their numbers are getting much lower than they were before, because they're kind of hovering around 4,000 to 5,000 when they used to be like 7,000, 8,000, where Spain is right now. And America, they say America is about 2 weeks away from their peak too. So, I think America just hit 1,000 deaths in a day, and they're probably going to hit, it's going to get even bigger than that. But the one thing that we need to know is we don't want to get too worried about the number itself of how many people have died. Like the number of people who died, we're keeping track of these in the infections. But the most important thing is we have to keep track of per capita. Because some countries are bigger than others. Like if you have a country of 10 people and 5 people die, then you lost half your country. But then what if you lose 10 people, but your country has 100 people, which means only 10%. So the country, so the size of the country makes a big difference. The larger the size, the more you lose. And that's why right now the models in America, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's basically the face of the coronavirus over in America, the doctor that's keeping everyone in check. And he says the models right now are giving you a range of anywhere from 100,000 to 240,000 deaths in America. Okay? And this is included with the social distancing and the mitigation that in place. That includes this, that we're looking at a minimum of 100,000 deaths in America. So it's pretty serious over there right now. And we're still 2 weeks away from the peak. But I want you to take a look at some real numbers. Real numbers is right now at this moment, what are the real numbers? Because even though America has like 217,000 infections, which is more than Spain and Italy combined, and they're both over 100,000 too, right? And basically what it's saying is the number you want to look at is not so much even the number of deaths, but it's the number of deaths per capita. So they count it for every million people. So right now at the moment, the US is about 12 people dying per million people. And just kind of give you a grasp of the difference between Italy and the US is that Italy and Spain are hovering around 206 deaths per million. So you got to think about that, which means that Italy and Spain are at a rate that is 20 times higher than America at the moment. Like France is at 54. It's not even close. It's still 4 times less than what Italy is doing. So you have to realize that although the number for America is going to go up higher and higher, but they say that we're everyone's kind of hoping that it's going to be around where Belgium is around 70 to 80 deaths per million. That's kind of what the hope is. So I really hope that we'll kind of look at things not so much just by the number itself, because even if you look at China's at 1.4 billion. So even if they lost like 200,000 people, it's much different than a smaller country losing a much smaller number than that also. So the deaths per million is kind of a better way to look at how a country is really doing. And America actually is not too bad right now. It's about 12 per million. And of course, the number is going to rise. It will rise because the population doesn't increase, but the amount of deaths will increase. So it's a matter of how much it's going to rise, and we're hoping that this social distancing does its job. But something on another note, an interesting thing is there are about 2 or 3 countries that are not doing social distancing. And one of them is Sweden. And then, most of the other countries, like the majority of all the other countries, they're all doing social distancing. And what they found is that the countries that are doing social distancing, the numbers are starting to drop. And the interesting thing is the country like Sweden right now that is not doing social distancing, their numbers are starting to steepen. So that's kind of something interesting that we should keep in mind, that the social distancing is something that is helping in most of the countries that are doing it. Another interesting stat that I saw online was the death rate and how many days it takes to double. So they're looking at the world and how many days does it take for the world death number to double. And they say at the moment it's weekly. So every week the death rate doubles. So right now we're at about 49,000, which means that in 1 week we should be at roughly 100,000 deaths in 1 week. Italy is doing really well now because it's taking the average for the world is 7 days, but Italy is 9 days. So it's not too bad. They're actually slowing down. Spain looks like they're slowing down too, because just yesterday they were doubling every 5 days, and today they're doubling every 6 days. So that's actually a good sign. UK is not a very good sign because they're still doubling every 3 days. It used to be 4, but now it's 3. France is every 5 days, and the US at the moment is also every 3 days. So this is something that we have to kind of keep in mind, that these deaths, the number is actually doubling at kind of an alarming rate, and every week it looks like if it keeps doubling, then in 2 weeks the whole world should be at 200,000 deaths. And then if it doubles again, and we stay at the same rate, it should be 400,000. So it's almost like exponential, right? The one thing I did want to talk about today is something called an antibody test. Now, an antibody test, they're actually being made right now, and they're widely used in China and South Korea at the moment. And a lot of other countries are actually buying these tests. They're actually really cheap. They're under $10. And it's a take-home kit, and it tests to see if you have antibodies for the coronavirus. And basically what an antibody is, just to put it in simple form, if you catch the coronavirus, what happens is your white blood cells come in and they fight against it, and you get to form some immunity to it. So you can't catch it again. And there was some tests already done on monkeys recently where they gave monkeys the coronavirus, and then they, excuse me, after getting the coronavirus, that wasn't the coronavirus, by the way, it's just a cough. They gave monkeys the coronavirus, these lab monkeys, and then after they recovered from it, a week after they recovered, they were immune to the coronavirus. which shows that there is immunity that can be built up. And of course, you heard on the news sometimes like, oh my gosh, someone caught the coronavirus twice. And actually, there hasn't been any evidence for it. It's basically just hearsay, or like someone just said it. And there's no actual evidence saying that someone caught it twice. So at the moment, even Dr. Anthony Fauci, he basically says that he's basically going to bet anything on it that people who get it will gain immunity from it. So what happens is, if you gain immunity from it, if you're immune, you've already caught it, you got immunity to it, that means you can basically go out and do what you want to do because you can't catch it anymore. And these new tests, these take-home tests, take about 15 minutes, and they're way faster than all the other tests that they're doing now to see if you have the virus or not. And this 15-minute check is you just take it home, and there's two really good things about this. Number one is, if they can find people who have the antibodies for the coronavirus, then you can actually use that blood to help people who are fighting it right now. So they are using it in some areas. I believe in New York they're using it. I know they're using it in Colorado. Oh, not in Colorado. I believe in another country. Maybe it's in China too. And some of the tests they tested on 5 patients in China. I'm not sure if we can trust this information though, because it's China. But they said that one of them is recovering pretty well. So it's kind of a good thing that basically what the theory is that you can share antibodies. So if you take blood from someone else and you give it to someone else, then you're sharing the antibodies also. So that's one good thing that it can do, because once you find out you're immune to it, you can donate blood to help people who are struggling with it. And the second thing that it's going to do, if we can find out people who have these antibodies, is people can start going back to work. You can figure out who can go back to work, because everyone who's immune, who's already had it, can just basically go back to work, and they're not going to spread it and they're not going to get it. So it basically can tell the country which people can go back and start the country's economy again, because they can't get reinfected. Now, the only thing that they need to test, or the only thing that they're not so sure about, is how long people are immune for. And this is not in all viruses, but there are some viruses where the immunity, the antibodies are temporary, which means that when the virus comes again, it mutates and finds a way around the antibody. But this is only found in certain viruses, not a lot of them. So in most cases, we're looking at good immunity that will last for quite a while. So we're hoping for this, but there's still that we still haven't really tested how long we're going to be immune for. So I'm really, really hoping that these tests can come to many different countries, so that they'll be able to see who can go back to work, who is immune to it, who can help other people with their blood. So that is actually really, really good news, and we just really got to pray that just as so many people are getting this coronavirus, it also means that when they recover, especially the people who are already tested positive, when they recover, they're basically not going to get it. We're looking 1 to 2 weeks after they'll be immune to it, which is a great thing, because those people can start going back to work and they're immune. They can't even give it to other people. So this, it looks like there are a lot of things happening. Like I told you about the new test in America, that's 5 minutes, and another one that's 45 minutes instead of waiting 24 to 48 hours. So there's a lot of things that God is kind of opening up so that we'll be able to handle this coronavirus in a much easier way. And that's going to lead to the second part of the music portion. And of course, what are we going to listen to? We're going to listen to 2 songs and praise songs. And the first song we're going to listen to is The Lord's Love. Okay, The Lord's Love. And the second song is a song we heard once before, and we introduced like Abraham T. He's a pastor here in Malaysia, and this song is made by all Malaysians, but today I wanted to showcase the actual singers. And there's 4 singers for this song called Promise Till the End. The song is in Chinese, and it's from Yojung, Felix, Suzanne, and Guo Wei. So please enjoy these 2 songs, The Lord's Love and Promise Till the End.
Atoned for our sins. He made us whiter than will proclaim the truth for all the lives that are dying. Hear the Lord words, hear the Spirit inspires you. All whom God chose, gain love and rapture here. So as we sing the new spiritual songs, give all your love and the highest glory. We've begun the millennium wedding feast. So as we sing the new spiritual songs, give all your love and the highest glory. We've begun the millennium wedding feast in the golden city, the world of eternal joy.
那年仲夏天，山地中百合花盛开了。10年把你我紧紧靠近。
那年的誓言，我仍坚守着，不曾改变。你的眼泪，我终于看见。
你的话语穿透我灵魂，你的爱紧贴我身边。
牺牲了所有，只为了我们能真正得到自由。我愿爱你永久。走进我该走的路，我深爱着你，
你深爱着我，
永不分离。誓言，我仍坚守着，不曾改变。你的泪水，我终于看见。
你的话语穿透我灵魂，你的爱紧贴我身边。
牺牲了所有，只为了我们能真正得到自由。我愿爱你永久，相约到永久，哪怕天地都过去，为爱的牺牲受尽了风霜，我愿为你守候，相约到永久，走进我该走的路。我深爱着你，
你深爱着我，
永不分离。哪怕天地
And that was Promised Till the End, and that is an all Malaysian made song. The four singers there was Yojung, Felix, Suzanne, and Guo Wei. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And of course, the very first song was also The Lord's Love. And that brings us to the section when it comes to the words of the week. And I don't know if anyone can really deny that this week's message was very powerful, deep-filled shimjung. And I just wanted to look at some proverbs from yesterday. And one of them I looked at and I really thought about for a moment. And it was, you must seek the better will of God as you work. Then you'll be able to do things fitting to reality. And I think this is something that is beneficial to everyone because we do want to do things that fits the reality that we're in right now. Like, for instance, there's a lot of things that we might hear, but it may not pertain to our situation. So the will of God comes out, and yet throughout the world, everyone is in a different situation, in a different circumstance, and we need to figure out what fits best in the reality of where we are right now. And the key words that kind of stuck out in my head was the beginning, which says, you must seek the better will. Now, when you think about that, better will means that there are levels of will. And this is something that's very interesting because this is something that Sunny talked about even on Sunday and Wednesday, where it's the moment you realize that the will of God is that important, that it's that important, then God is searching your heart to see how much you are actually looking for it. How important is it really to you? Now that you realize that the will of God is important, it depends on how much you pray. It depends on how much you search and earnestly want it. And the one thing that was interesting is that if you go to the spiritual world, God can't hide the answer from you, which means that's how deep we need to go into it. And one of the proverbs right after says, your mind cannot be dull. So I know that a lot of us have to realize that there's a lot of things that we do while praying, a lot of things we do asking God, and it still doesn't work out the way that we thought it would. And one thing we have to realize, there is always a better will. Which means that the more we seek and the more we put in, the better the answer is going to be and the better the will we're going to figure out. The will is revealed more the more you search, the more you pray, and the more sincere and earnest you are and how much you really want to know. And this is why we need to search our hearts, right? And this is why God said on Wednesday that I searched your hearts from Sunday to see how much you really search for the will of God. This is purely about human responsibility, which means that the will always be there and it'll always be this many steps away. It'll always be this many knocks on the door away. And it's just a matter of how much we put in. And this really reminds me that truth is very interesting too, because everything that God does is very similar. And the truth is the more you seek something or the more you know something, the more clear and the more detailed it gets. Like the best example I'll give is like the earth in the beginning we thought was flat. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, it's a sphere. And then we're like, it's not a sphere, it's an egg, right? So we're like saying, yeah, the more and more we get to know the truth and we search for it more and more, then even the truth of the shape of the earth is different. It's an egg. And I was just reading, the reason I'm bringing this up, because I was reading recently that the actual shape of the earth is constantly changing. As crazy as that sounds. And the reason is because the mass of the planet, like where the mass is centralized, well, the mass of the planet is constantly shifting, just constantly shifting all the time. So the areas that have more mass, there's more gravity, so it begins to bulge out. So a bump forms. So basically, these scientists are saying that, yeah, there's bumps around the globe, and even as the globe is shifting, the bumps are shifting too. And the way they measure this is they have these tracking devices all around the Earth that measures how far away the satellite is from the Earth. And if the bump comes up, then it's going to show that now this side of the world or this area of the world is bulging out more than the other. And basically, they're saying is, the shape of the world is constantly shifting. And that's if you think about that, that's kind of crazy, right? That we've gotten to the point we are able to even figure out even the small shifts in the changes of the shape of the earth. We went from flat to a constantly changing with bumps and bulges. It's almost like the earth got a pimple, right? The earth got a pimple, then it went down, and then another pimple grew on the other side, right? So that's kind of what we're saying, and it's like, wow, that's kind of interesting. That the more we search and the more earnest we want it, the more details and the more truth we get. And this brings me to my story of the day. And this is my story. And the reason why I bring this up is because of the proverb. The proverb that basically says you have to seek the better will, right? For it to fit the reality of the situation. And the reason I bring this up is because the person that evangelized me, he did something that was so risky, was so crazy, that everyone else was telling him, don't do it. So at the time I was being evangelized, I was learning the word here, and then I was also going to a church, another church, a former faith church. Somewhere else, really big Korean church. And what happened was, I guess I was too slow for him. I don't know. Because I know he's someone who prays a lot too. And he got the inspiration to come to my church camp. So it's for the former faith church. And we have a church camp that's in the mountains. And what he did was he invited himself without me knowing. And he just shows up. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, oh my God. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was upset. Who does this guy think he could just come to this, like, my church camp, doesn't even tell me, and just comes? And the thing that made it worse was everyone liked him. So it just made me, like, even more angry. Like, right? And then what eventually happened was, during like the first that we arrived the first day, and that night he started sharing the word. And then I'm gonna just say, one thing led to another. In the middle of the night, we get a knock on the door, and the pastor calls me out with the person that evangelized me, and leaves me outside with one of the youth pastors, and 3 pastors go in, like starting to question him about what he's teaching. And, I was like, oh no, this is not good. And, when there's the curtains in the window, but, sometimes there's like these slivers of light, you can look inside. So I was like, maybe I should look inside to see what's happening. I look through the curtain, like this little sliver of light, and I see the guy evangelized me. And he's holding up the Bible, and you know what he's saying to the 3 pastors? He's like, we have the truth. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was like, oh, it's over. 2 hours later, they sit me down like, hey man, you're in a cult, this and this. I'm like, oh my gosh. They send the guy home in the first night. And I was like, what the heck just happened? But the interesting thing was, it forced me no longer to be lukewarm. It was the perfect thing for that moment, where I was perfectly fine and happy going to this big church over here and just doing Bible study here. And when that happened, actually, that person went home and told everyone that he killed me. Like, I can't believe I'm so stupid. I should have listened to you guys. But actually, that was the day that I actually made up my mind, and I said, okay, I got to make up my mind. And I made the choice. So, for me, this totally reminds me of that story, because it was the better will. Everyone else was saying, don't do it. You're gonna kill him. Don't do it. But it was exactly what I needed. And sometimes when we think about it, sometimes a better will might be something that we're like, I don't know if I want to risk doing that. But if we really earnestly ask and try to figure out what is the best thing to do, I know that God will lead us to the better will. And we just have to be those people that are not dull, but pay attention in the best and brightest way. So this leads me to the song. I always pick a song at the very end, a song that I grew up with. And when I was in high school, this is a song from 1995, but most of you, actually all of you, are not going to know this, and most likely even the Japanese people won't know this. It's a Japanese song that I used to listen to when I was in high school in 1995. So just to let you know, I was in high school in 1995. Okay, and this song is called "A Piece of My Wish" from Miki Imai. And this is a great song because I was learning Japanese at that time, but it's talking about, you're going through some difficult times, but you have to trust in yourself. You have to take care of your friends. Your friends love you. And this is a song that really kind of gives you that confidence, but I think it's also needed in this time where you need to believe in yourself, not meaning that don't believe in God, but when you get the answer and the will that God wants to give you, you got to believe it, right? Because you prayed for it, and you're earnest about it, and you got to try it. And it may seem crazy, but you got to be the ones that say, okay, God, if this is really it, I'm going to do it. And I hope that you guys enjoy this song from Miki Imai from 1995, and it's called Piece of My Wish. Those who want to see the lyrics, it is on the internet, so enjoy. And that was a song from 1995 back in my high school days. That is from Miki Imai, Japanese singer, and the song is Piece of My Wish. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. And that kind of brings us down to the very, very ending of the show. And of course, I want to give you some kind of movie review and recommendation. So today's recommendation, this also comes from 1981. And those of you who are in my generation, the moment you hear the theme song, you are going to know what the movie is. So this is a movie by Steven Spielberg, and the main actor is none other than Harrison Ford in his young and youthful days. And those of you who don't know Harrison Ford, he is Kylo Ren's father, Han Solo, in the Star Wars movies. Total icon in my days, and I can't believe I have to actually explain who Harrison Ford is. Either way, Indiana Jones, archaeologist, has an eye for adventure and always getting into danger. And in this movie, what is he searching for? It's a biblical thing. He searches for the lost Ark of the Covenant that's spoken of in the time of the Old Testament. However, it seems Hitler and the Nazis are searching for it too. So watch the adventure and see how Indiana Jones saves the day. And by the way, the movie is totally unrealistic. It's just pure entertainment and enjoyment during this lockdown time. So grab some popcorn with your family, grab some popcorn with your friends, and enjoy the movie. What is it? It is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I hope that you guys will definitely enjoy that too, because I have watched that movie probably a trillion times. I watched it so many times, okay? But I hope that you guys will check it out. Good movie. One of the classics. And it's a trilogy. So there's, well, not a trilogy. I think there's 5 of them now. But the first 3 are the best ones. So that brings us to the end of the show. It is the Friday, April 3rd edition of the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. Just remember, tomorrow is the Bubble Talk. And on Sunday, we have a great interview with someone from South Africa. Her name is Dini or Youngse. So come join in that and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.